Hello, I'm Lexi, and this is what you should know. Merry Christmas, festive Las Posadas, Happy Hanukkah, Blessed Yule or Letha depending on which side of the equator you are. Happy Festivus, Kwanzaa, or Omisoka. Whatever you celebrate, I hope it is a happy and peaceful time for you and your loved ones. One of my favourite innocuous things about Christmas is cracker jokes. And I have a doozy for you. What do you get if you blow up Woolworths? Coals. Ha ha! Boom boom! Get it? I'll be here all week. Try the fish. You may notice this episode is a few days early. This is my small gift to you all. But, all merriment aside, I do have a strange and scary one for you this week. This is what you should know about the Woolworths Christmas bombings. Christmas at the shopping centre is always a crazy time. Last-minute shoppers swarming to get gifts and their prawns for family gatherings. It is a loud and confusing place to be, but perfect for Grinch-like monsters to slink through and do damage. In the early hours of the morning of December 17th, 1980, a gelignite bomb with timer went off in one of the Woolworths in Warilla, New South Wales. Thankfully, no one was in the store due to the hour, and damage was minimal, meaning the store could still operate in the lead up to Christmas. Police did not have a lot of information to go on at this time, but it had been said this bomb had been lowered through a skylight and was only done to potentially deter shoppers. But this would not deter them at all. The next attack would happen just 2 days later, just minutes before 2 a.m., a Woolworths located in Maitland, Hunter Valley. This is no short distance from the first site, being a total of 260 kilometers away, or a 4-hour drive. Police were confused by this attack though, as the Woolworths was next to a Westpac banking branch, but the bank had not been robbed, and the main goal of the attack again was to inflict damage to Woolworths and potentially deter shoppers. The damage to this store was at a whopping $300,000 worth, as they had been stocking up for the Christmas rush. Police did their best to investigate this crime, but there was little evidence that survived the blast. They also believed briefly that the two explosions could have been connected, but they soon decided that this was just a coincidence. And yes, this is a sigh-worthy moment, as this had been the same bomb type, and there hadn't been many bombings prior. But what really adds to this is that when that specific bomb went off, it was loud enough to wake a police officer that had fallen asleep at their desk about 15 kilometers away. The day after the Maitland bombing, on December 20th, a man rang up Woolworths in Orange, New South Wales, threatening to blow up another store if he did not receive $1 million. Okay, Dr. Evil. This was initially not taken seriously and received next to no attention. The only place I found this mentioned was briefly in the news article that was published on the 27th of December, 1980, and it reads as following. They were also convinced that the bomber was the man who rang the Woolworths store at Orange and threatened that unless $1 million was paid, a store at Orange or in the city would be blown up. On December 22nd, a letter was received by company executive of the time, A.J. Harding, and in this letter was a list of demands. $1 million in cash, gold, and diamonds. Unless these were delivered, the next stage of the bombing threats would start, including daylight bombings during peak shopping hours. This letter was signed, Mr. Dunmore. Now this would seem like a silly moment of someone deciding to sign their name, but it was in fact more of a cocky joke to a crime that had happened before the bombings took place. You see, Dunmore is a small town on the south coast of New South Wales, and in September of 1980, 215 sticks of gelignite were stolen, the same kind of explosives used in the attack on Woolworths. Police believed that with this information, that the two were likely linked. Despite the fact 2 stores had already been attacked, Woolworths ignored the demand letter. With it being Christmas week, you can understand why they would continue to trade. But with the threat to life, you would think they would have taken things a little more seriously. Even just the idea of including further security. But that was simply not the case. On Christmas Eve, just 2 days later at 3:15 p.m., On Christmas Eve, just 2 days later, at 3:15, the bomber called the same Woolworths using the same code name as in the letter. Thankfully, the worker that took the call took it seriously, called the police, and evacuated thousands of customers and all 600 staff that were present at the 11-story site. At 3:25 p.m, a bomb inside the store went off and 2 people outside the shop were injured by the blast, also shattering 4-meter-high ground floor windows. But this time, the bomber made a grave mistake and was seen planting the bomb in the store's toy aisle. There is just something so evil about setting up a timed explosion in a toy aisle during Christmas Eve. The true devastation that would have caused had the worker who took the cold didn't take it seriously honestly chills me to the bones. But perhaps it was more of a warning shot, hence the phone call. But I digress. This terrorist had been seen and was described as being 25 to 30 years old, 5'8" and slim. He was clean shaven, with blonde collar-length straight hair parted in the middle. He had a fair complexion and was wearing faded blue jeans and an old-looking long-sleeved cream shirt buttoned up the center. He was carrying a brown paper bag in the vicinity of the store just before the bombing. And on Christmas Day, police issued an identikit of the described man stating that they wanted to talk to him. That same day, the biggest reward offered in Australia was also announced: $250,000. Woolworths Corporate Relations Director, Mr. John Hendry, said the bombings were horrific, but would also not comment on whether any extortion demand had been made. The cold-blooded lizard man also said that the previous explosions had occurred in the early hours of the morning and nobody had been injured, so this likely made them feel justified in not taking that extra step in care. But it could also just be due to the history of bomb threats that they had faced at that time. November 1978, Woolworths in Adelaide received a note demanding $515,000 to prevent explosions in 2 Adelaide stores. These bombs were found in the stores before they could explode. October 28, 1980, Woolworths head office in Sydney received an extortion note demanding payment of $800,000 and threatened that poisoned grocery items would be put into 150 Woolworths stores around the country if some products were not withdrawn. But poisoned items were found in the Double Bay store and the store that was bombed on Christmas Eve. After that explosion, police took extra care due to fears of a second explosion. They called in for an army bomb disposal experts to travel 20 kilometres from the scene of another bomb scare at Woolworths store in Bankstown in southwestern suburbs. But that would not be all, as another Woolworths store, 3 blocks away on the corner of Pitt Street and Liverpool Street, received a bomb threat. However, nothing was found at this store. Shortly after all of this, 2 young TV camera crewmen came forward saying that they were approached about 4 hours before the explosion, telling them that a Woolworths store was going to be bombed. It was then brought up that a Channel 7 film clip of a man believed to be connected to the bombing may be a valuable clue. With this information being public, Channel 7 in Sydney received 3 telephone calls from the same person, and they were certain that it was the man shown in the film clip. The man with an Australian accent rang and told Channel 7 receptionist Dorothy Grieve, "You are crazy if you think I am going to give myself up over a film clip." He also told the station not to show the film clip again, and then ring again after the Channel 7 showed the clip on the news the night before, saying, "You got my message, didn't you?" But this must have spooked him, as he made more calls that night claiming that the next bomb would go off in the Woolworths Auburn store in Sydney's western suburbs at 9:30 a.m. Ultimately, the Auburn alert was declared a hoax after police cleared the store before 9 a.m. and no explosives were found. Unfortunately, the extortion note was leaked to the media, and senior executives confirmed that the publication of the note had impacted chances of catching the bombers as hoax callers began using the name Mr. Dunmore. Police became concerned, and it was said that if hoax calls continued, police officers and public may begin to take them less seriously, which would pose a greater threat if the real threat came through. Thankfully, contact was established with the real terrorist, and they were able to create a new code name to ensure that his threats would be taken seriously. That to me is honestly wild, but at the same time it does make sense, as he is obviously asking for a lot of money and did not want that going through to one of the hoax callers. Finally, on New Year's Eve 1980, Woolworths gave in to the extortion and collected the requested ransom, waiting for further instructions. Working with the police to create a plan to catch the terrorist, they spoke with him over the next 10 days to confirm a time and place to exchange the ransom. On January 12, 1981, the bombers made multiple calls to get the agreed-upon ransom and were eventually told around midday to go to the Highway Hotel. And once they were there, they were then told to take it to the Rose Bay Hotel. And again, once there, they were redirected again. After a whole day of following instructions given to them by the bombers, they were finally told at 11 p.m. to drop the ransom into the harbour at the Taronga Zoo wharf. The plans they had for this was to keep them moving so police would not have time to set up a watch point. However, this really didn't work out for them at all, as this would also be their downfall. An undercover detective was quote-unquote fishing on the Taronga Zoo wharf that night, and had caught the man attempting to recover the ransom of $1 million worth of money, gold and diamonds. Gregory Norman McCarty was arrested at the scene in the early hours of the 13th. The same day, the terrorist called in a threat of an undisclosed bombs if the courier collecting the money was arrested. Initially, Gregory made excuses as to why he was in the water trying to steal the ransom. While investigating Gregory, the police came across a second potential man known as Larry Danielson, who lived on the same street as Gregory. Police became extremely interested in Larry, as it appeared that he had a lot of incriminating circumstantial evidence at his home, including a map of the zoo, and one of the police recognized him from the identikits. But aside from those, it is not reported what else he may have had. However, he did have a lengthy criminal record and was arrested in connection to the bombings. After this arrest, Gregory appeared to spill his guts about a third person involved by the name of Benny. Benny was described as thick-set with a face like a wrestler, and had been provided with places that he would frequent around King's Cross. Due to concerns of a third terrorist potentially targeting Woolworths, they closed all 256 stores around New South Wales to prevent any loss of life. Both Gregory and Larry were remanded in custody and charged with the bombings and demanding money with menaces. While in custody, Gregory decided it was a brilliant idea to represent himself rather than hire a defense lawyer, which if you have listened to any amount of true crime, you would be aware that this is a terrible idea. Bundy! Sorry, what? Larry, however, was smart and hired a lawyer. Between then and when the trial was to pick up after Easter of 1982, more information came to light. It was widely reported on the 20th of April, 1981, that after a nationwide manhunt for Benny, that Sergeant Anderson revealed that after a further conversation with Gregory regarding the third terrorist, that he had told the police that Benny did not exist. So to put it simply, the stores closed for no real reason, because there was no third, only Gregory and Larry. But that being said, it was also good to see them taking that extra step to be careful. Before Easter could come, on April 10th, 1982, Gregory escaped from prison, and police issued a nationwide alert. They began a hunt with tracker dogs in Sydney's western suburbs, and he was first noticed missing on that Saturday when he did not attend a noon meeting. They started with an intensive search of the prison premises, which they called off after they failed to find him. At first, corrections officers believed he might be hiding in the prison, and admitted that they were baffled by his escape, with one officer saying he was not seen scaling any of the walls. It was later revealed that he had escaped by hiding in a garbage truck. But that did not stop the trial from proceeding, and both Gregory McCarty and Larry Danielson were both found guilty on all charges. Larry was handed down a 20-year sentence, with the jury taking a little over 3 hours to come back with their verdict. Part of the sentencing for Larry came when the court heard about his criminal history. He had been convicted previously of theft, forgery, false declaration and false pretenses in 1955 and 1957. In 1966, he had been sentenced to 3 years hard labour on 3 counts of false pretenses. More that came with him was in 1988, when he was to be released on parole and deported back to New Zealand after serving just 7 of his 20 years, with 9 years that was supposed to be a non-parole period. But before I go jumping too far ahead of myself, more insanity was unleashed in the wake of Gregory McCarty's escape, as another bomb went off in the back of a Woolworths in Liverpool in 1982, while Gregory was still on the run from the law. Police strongly believed that this was linked to Gregory, understandably. However, this bombing was not mentioned at length in any of the articles I found pertaining to this case. And let me tell you, if it wasn't for certain websites, I would not have found anything aside from the 40-year anniversary article posted back in 2020. Detectives attended this bombing while the Woolworths employees attempted to continue on with business as usual. One of the gelic nightsticks blew a 3 meter by 1 meter hole in the roof at roughly 4:40 a.m. and it also blew a hole in the wall of an office, and the blast could be heard from 5 kilometers away. The explosion cost roughly $10,000 in damages. It was speculated that the bomb may have been placed on the roof or thrown up, since there was no sign of breaking and entering or theft. The Woolworths executive were on high alert, saying in one interview, "We might not get any letter for a few days yet." But no ransom demand was ever made. In June, Gregory McCarty was captured again and received a 27-year sentence in July of that year. However, Gregory was not one to go down without a fight. As it was reported publicly on the 29th of November 1982, he was a part of another escape attempt. 4 prisoners, including Gregory McCarty, were with 3 others in the exercise yard at 10:50 a.m. They cut a hole through the 3-meter-high cyclone wire fence with a pair of tin snips, and one by one they climbed through the fence and through a makeshift rope and anchor made from a pillow filled with sand and attached to sheets, over the wall below a guard tower. The guard in the tower noticed them and fired a warning shot over their heads, and they fled back through the hole into the exercise yard, where they then attacked a prison guard with a broom handle. Further charges were laid against Gregory, and he was transferred to Goulburn Maximum Security Prison. Just after 6 years of imprisonment, Gregory was released on parole, which is just wild in my opinion. He was supposed to have a 9-year non-parole period. He attempted to escape twice and exploded multiple Woolworths stores. Now, it isn't just the bombers acting criminal. Woolworths tried to play it sketchy with the $250,000 reward that they had offered. Mr. Cook had been one to provide the information that led to the arrest of Larry Danielson in 1981. The month after the arrest, Mr. Cook claimed his reward, and in August of 1982 he received a letter from Woolworths for a check for a measly $4,000. Hardly $250,000 that was promised. Mr. Cook then went on to sue Woolworths for the $250,000, and there was no more real information regarding this, which is likely because they settled outside of court. Honestly, with it being this time of the year, and from what I read, I believe Gregory was unemployed at the time. I can only assume it all boils down to money. Gregory and Larry wanted it. Woolworths didn't want to part with it. The December period is expensive, always have been, and always likely will be. If you are struggling to keep up financially, and December has just destroyed you for one reason or another, please reach out for help. Financial counselors are free. Most places you would have finance through would have hardship teams, just itching to help you back onto your feet. You don't have to struggle. You just have to be willing to make an effort and meet your creditors halfway, which is extremely important now with the cost of living becoming near impossible to keep up with. I will be listing places where you can get assistance, whether that is because you find yourself in financial hardship or because December is emotionally difficult. I promise, it all does get better eventually. But that is all I have for you this week. I know it isn't any longer than my original episodes, but this had minimal on it out there. I did find old newspaper articles, but did not wish to listen to any podcasts as I did not want to influence how this came together. But I did see Weird Crap in Australia has an episode, and Forgotten Australia managed to turn this into an 8-part series, allegedly including interviews. So if you do want more information, please do go give them a listen. Tell them WhiskerPod says hi. As always, I will be posting relevant pictures on Facebook and Instagram at What You Should Know Australia. If you want to reach out, maybe make a case request, my new email is whiskerpod@gmail.com. I think it is also in my hot link in Linktree. But until next year, stay safe, stay merry, and stay hydrated. Bye!